Welcome back, everyone. I'm the book guy, and I'm very excited. We got a good one for you today. We have been reading through the Discworld series one by one, and we're finally up to book 13, Small Gods, one of the best Discworld books. It's an excellent starting place if you're new to the series. It's got all the best traits of Discworld wrapped up into one, so I'm very excited to talk about this one. Let me just remind you all of the rules for this video series I'm doing. Rule number one is that they're episodic. Discworld is an episodic series, meaning you can watch them in any order, and it won't impact your reading or viewing of any other book in the series. Second, there are no spoilers. I'm not going to spoil any of these books because I want new people to come and try out this series. And third, this will, however, be a little bit like a movie trailer. I'm going to tell you a few things about this book, only like introductionary things to get you interested. All right, let's get into this one. Number 13. I'm so keen. Now, Small Gods is the third standalone novel in the Discworld series. So the standalone ones aren't part of any of the sub-series. You can read them on their own, and they're a great place to just pick up, give Discworld a try, and keep going. Many people say that this is one of the best starting places because it's a standalone. No required reading before or after. This novel really just does work on its own merits. I mean, at some point I'm going to have to make a video where I rate every Discworld book, which I'll get around to. But when I do, I can just tell you now, this will be in the top category. Whatever my categories end up being, this is the best one. It doesn't really get much better than this. It's peak Discworld. One of the reasons why I say it's peak is because it has everything. Discworld is known for being a very comedy-heavy series. This absolutely has comedy, but we also have really tight plot lines, very sharp and witty plot lines that are engaging and tense. This also has heartfelt character arcs and really powerful themes that are not heavy-handed. We sometimes get big themes that are a bit blunt and heavy-handed. This one is expertly done. But what is extra special about Small Gods is we have all of these various strengths of Discworld, but all balanced. And that's something that we've seen a lot. In the first, quarter of the Discworld books, in the first 10, people often say the series gets better as it goes, and that's absolutely true. And what I'm finding in rereading the series is that the books won't be very well balanced. We have books that are very comedy heavy, but then weaker on the plot, and then vice versa. Or they have big themes, but then that distracts from the actual plot. It's like that over and over. This is the point where we start getting all of these things happening, and they're balanced, and one does not detract from the other. So it's expert writing. One last thing before we talk about the actual story, I'll remind you that there are a few standalones. So far we've covered Pyramids, Moving Pictures, and today's Small Gods. After this we also have The Truth, The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, and Monstrous Regiment. Although technically there are two books, The Last Hero and Unseen Academicals, which are sometimes classified as Rincewind books, but they are more standalone than anything else. But it's kind of, there are a few books in this series that are just hard to define, so don't worry too much about it. Alright, let's actually talk about the story. So, in Small Gods, the great and mighty and powerful god he is a giant turtle, but he is losing his power. He's currently trapped in the form of a normal everyday tortoise, and he can't get out.
This just got a whole lot harder.
The only person who can hear his voice is a humble temple boy named Brutha. And not brother, but brother with the U. Brutha is a simple-minded, idealistic teenager with an eidetic memory and a firm belief in his great and powerful god Brutha and the turtle god go on what you might call a religious jihad of sorts. You see, on the Discworld, the sun orbits a flat disk, but the Omnians believe that they live on a circular planet, and this planet revolves around the sun. To say otherwise is considered sacrilegious.
It's sacrilegious, I tell you!
But in the country next door, the Ephebians believe that the Discworld rides on the back of a giant turtle, and they have a proud saying, "The turtle moves." It's actually on my shirt today, "The turtle moves." Famous saying among the Discworld fandom. Now the Omnians are gonna punish the Ephebian non-believers for their heresy, but Brutha and they're about to learn that there is a lot more to religion than they first thought. Obviously, the major focus of this book is religion, and it is very much a satire of religion. We've seen religion pop up a couple of times in earlier Discworld books, quite most notably Pyramids features it quite prominently, but now we're going to tackle it head-on in its own special book. But it's not as critical of religion as you might think. You see, with pyramids, it doesn't focus on religion so much as does tradition. And everyone who believes in tradition is clearly depicted as just being utterly stupid. But here, the depiction of religion and religious people is much more compassionate, and it's more understanding and gentle, even as it's critiquing it. And I think that's an extremely wise thing to do. The only time the book really gets savage with its satire is when it's critiquing the leadership, or the villains in the top positions of religious organizations, who are the most power-hungry and bloodthirsty.
He gets so cute when he's thirsty for power.
But honest to God, God pun, this is truly masterful satire. I don't think you're likely to find satire that's handled better than this, because it's not just being cruel. And I think a lot of people mistake, mocking with satire. It's not quite the same thing. There was an interview where someone once asked Terry Pratchett, do religious fanatics ever get mad at you for writing small gods? And he had this wise answer where he said that he gets a lot of mail about small gods, and it's split between A, pagans who say that it really shafts the big beard in the sky religions, and 2, Christians who say that it is an incredibly pro-Christian book. And Pratchett went on to say, I suspect the latter is because Brutha displays tolerance, compassion, charity, steadfastness, and faith, and these are now considered Christian virtues, i.e. virtues that modern Christians feel they should have. So it's interesting that people have historically read this book and seen it as anti-Christian or pro-Christian, and we can sort of debate media literacy and people's ability to interpret meaning a little bit, but I also think that is how the book is written, because we have religious people in this book who may be, mocked a little bit, but they're also sincere, and the book is compassionate in how it depicts them and shows that they are human and that they are trying to be good people. And then we have other religious characters who, kind of are pure evil, and there is that juxtaposition, or for the allowance of nuance here. And that's why I think this book is not, strictly speaking, anti-religion and mocking all religious people, but critiquing it in wise and meaningful ways. And I think that's peak satire right there. There's a quote from within the book that says, just because you can explain it doesn't mean it's not still a miracle. I think this line perfectly encapsulates it, where it's not a book telling people that they should throw their Bible in the bin and abandon the church, but also acknowledging that there is marvel and mystery and beauty in life. There is the miraculous all around us. Let's move on from the religious themes. So the plot lines of this book are actually really closely linked with character, like I think most of the best Discworld books do. In this case, we've got 3 main characters that have their own arcs and are very much a focal point for their respective plot lines. So first we have the temple boy Brutha, then the formerly mighty god and the head of the Inquisition, Vorbis. Brutha is a wonderful protagonist. I think genuinely one of Terry Pratchett's best protagonists, because in many ways he's the whole reason why this book works. I mean, yeah, he's very much shown to be a little simple, a little basic, not that into critical thinking or wisdom. He just sort of takes what people tell him as truth and doesn't question it. So you might call him a little dumb, particularly at the start, but at the same time, he's so sincere and he believes in a totally non-malicious way. But over the course of the story, and particularly as he goes on this journey to Ephebians are the people, Ephebi is the country, yeah. As he travels to Ephebi, he meets the Ephebians. Oh boy. He starts to question everything for the first time. He hears people who he's been told all his life, they're the evil people over there. And then he talks to them, he's like, oh, they're actually not that evil. And then he starts to question the information he's been given, and he starts to read books for the first time, and he starts to learn new things. And that's his arc. His arc is not so much like, I was a believer and now I'm not. His arc is about, I used to not question anything, and now I question things. And I think that, again, is a much more respectful and nuanced depiction of a religious character. Much more sympathetic. Our second plot and character is focused around the mighty god. Now, this guy is he is peak arrogance. You do not get a character more arrogant than this guy. And it's so good. It's so brilliant because he's so pathetic and insignificant, and he needs help for everything. And that's juxtaposed with his extreme arrogance. It's so well done. One of the great joys of the book.
Mighty and powerful gods.
but he is struggling to learn what it means to be human. And I think this is a type of character arc we've seen in the Death novels, with Death learning a little bit more about humanity as well. But this time, rather than Death being a distant, detached creature, we have a god who is just convinced of his own superiority over mortals. It's a very different type of story.
Greetings, mortals.
Because Om starts to realize that his own recollection of the past and his own words and beliefs are contradicted by what the religion's actually doing. He sees what's being done in his name. So this guy is a flawed character who's got a lot to learn, and his learning process is one of the most rewarding parts of the book. Our third main character is our big villain, and I said in our last Discworld video that this is the point where we start seeing more and more villains in Discworld, and Vorbis is top tier villain, because he's not just super duper evil, or cartoonish evil. He's not a caricature. He is totally convinced of his own self-righteousness and his own self-delusion in being convicted of his beliefs. He refuses to question anything and refuses to tolerate any other opinion, and I think that's what makes him a little realistic. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that chilling, kind of vicious and cruel personality who's convinced of his own sanctification. Yes, but all of these characters and their respective plot lines are very much focused on the journey to Ephebi, and it confronts their different religious and philosophical views. They hear other people's opinions and they learn to question and doubt, or they refuse to learn anything. And that's what makes this such a good character piece. Now, there are plenty of deep themes in this story, and obviously all the religious stuff I mentioned earlier will be part of that, but I think it goes a lot further. One of the things we see in this book depicted quite aggressively is religious imperialism. Imperialism being, going to other countries and conquering and colonizing, and that's absolutely what the Omnians want to do. They claim that they are defending their faith, but in actuality, they want other people's lands, and they want to absorb their culture and their people, and they will use any pretext to justify doing that.
This is mine, and this is mine, and that's mine.
So this book is very much a clear depiction of the link between faith and its perversion into being used to justify imperialism. And that is a part of religion that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it's an important part that's absolutely prevalent. And again, the book's not saying all religious people are like that, but it's also showing how religion can use that, and it requires religious people to stand up and say, no, not in my name. The other big theme in this book is what I'll call the spectrum of religious believers. The spectrum between the really good religious people who care and love and are generous, and then the pure evil people who just want to use religion as an excuse for tyranny, and then the spectrum in between of a lot of people who have bits of all sides. And I think that is a more nuanced discussion that needs to be had whenever religion's involved. There is a lot of satire around the logical fallacies that are sometimes prevalent in religious thinking, the gaps in logic, prioritizing faith over reason, and also juxtaposing the claim of being good and virtuous while their actions are heartless and cruel.
You are being rescued. Please do not resist.
There are many religious quotes in this book, and I'll only just give you one today, and that is, belief shifts. People start out believing in the God and end up believing in the structure. And I think that's the heart of what this book is critiquing in religion. Not necessarily the belief itself, but the belief in the structure and the organization rather than the belief in the deity or the actions that are pure and noble. So ultimately, I think this sort of satire is a call for religious people to do better. I'll close the video by saying I think there's a lot of other satire stories out there. I'm honestly thinking of South Park or Family Guy. The type of story that is satirizing, right-wing politics or left-wing politics, but it usually does so by just calling everyone an idiot.
You're an idiot, you know that?
And making them look as stupid as possible, where I think what more people should learn is to write satire the way Terry Pratchett does, which is to absolutely mock, but with more compassion. And I think the gentleness is what actually makes it effective and more wise, more nuanced storytelling. Because if you just read a story that's, calling everyone stupid and making you feel smart, well, then you're not learning anything. You're not being challenged. And I think this is a book that is challenging in all the right ways. Well, I'll leave it there. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the 14th Discworld book, Lords and Ladies, an underrated one, in my opinion. I'm going to make a case for that. But guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing on my channel, I hope you'll check out my own books, The Immortal Investigations, an urban fantasy mystery novel. You can also check out my shop and, shirts and merch, that sort of thing. And I have a Patreon where you can vote on my content. Otherwise, subscribe for more videos like this. And I hope you enjoy a good book today, and especially, I hope it's a Discworld book. I'll talk to you again very soon. Okay, bye now.